quickly we are increasing in power. And if you're increasing too quickly, there is a concern that essentially you won't be able to shut down the reactor in time. That very high out of control period is fundamentally the mechanism that if it had been controlled and received a signal during Chernobyl, we might have had a different event. They might have been able to stop that reaction. So it's a very important control parameter, and we'll really learn the details of a lot of these reactor physics things when we do our reactor theory class next semester. But hopefully, as I explain to you how this works and the different things that are detected and how they interact, you can see how this causes a scram for all three of our scrammable rods. And then of course, on every single one of these, we also get a scram alarm, which is indicated here, right? So our control rods scram, and we get an alarm when any of these systems get to their presets or have difficulty with their high voltage. And you may be asking how I knew all of this information from this drawing. A lot of the information on how this system actually functions is because I know how the reactor works, right? I don't necessarily learn from this drawing that this high voltage power can de-energize and that would cause a scram, right? I simply see how these systems are laid out together and connected. I have to know that what we're talking about is essentially a signal coming here, interacting with this and causing these electromagnets to de-energize, right? So block diagrams aren't showing us the function. And so some of that functional explanation that I gave you is information from reading the SAR, having operated the reactor on campus. But I hope that that explanation shows you how when I see this block diagram and how everything is laid out, I can then start looking at my schematics that will show that function, and it's a lot easier to follow that process. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so we're going to go over some examples next class from the handbook, as well as some examples from ATR. So the handbook ones, I would highly encourage you to read those ahead of time, because then you would have read them and then we're going to discuss them in class and you're going to look at them and so you would have gotten that information repetitively, which really helps make it something that you've learned, not just heard. And then we're going to jump from that into pulling up some ATR drawings that are pretty detailed. They're actual drawings from reactor control systems. Yeah, Haley. Did you mean to raise your hand, Haley? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question about the assignment that was due this morning for the thermo.
Okay, the ice cubes.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do the math problems on it, and so I haven't been able to turn it in yet, and I was told that it was due at like 8 o'clock this morning.
It was due this morning before classes. I think that a lot of people had issues. I got a lot of questions on this, and then the additional information I sent out via email, I had multiple different people tell me that they never saw. So we're going to discuss it in class tomorrow. So if you just want to send me what you have, we're going to go over it in class, and I'm going to give people a chance to revise it because I people were struggling.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, mine was the same way, and I went to turn mine in this morning, and I didn't realize there was like a submit thing, so I like hit enter, and I like had to go submit. and it was 37 seconds late.
Yeah, just send me what you
Is
have
that an issue?
done so far, and we'll try to go over it in class, and then people who want to revise
Okay.
can do
Just
that.
to clarify something.
Yeah. No, your dog there
Okay.
has really upset my dog. He cannot figure out where that came from. Any other questions on the material from this class? Okay, guys. Well, that was our lecture for today in drawings. Like I said, look at the handbook reading, look at the symbology, highlight some important ones or print out the pages, have them easy to access because you need those symbology guides when you read through. In my personal opinion, electronic diagrams and schematics are very difficult because so many of the symbols are just tiny little changes to the flow line of how the system works. And so I never read them without having the key, the symbology essentially printed out. And I'm going to recommend that you all have markers or highlighters or colored crayons because I will generally go through and I'll color code symbology that's the same so that every time I come across a little squiggle, I don't have to determine, is this one just a little bit different? Is this a variable or a fixed? I have kind of done that work on the drawing because for me, the electronic drawings, I don't know, I don't like the symbology as much as the PNIDs. It's not as easy for me. So that's what I've always done. It's how I'll go through the drawings Thursday. And I'll even use the highlighters on the PNIDs to follow pathways and flows. Just because I think it's easier. When you have a drawing you have to understand and you're sitting trying to read through it, I mark mine up. And so we'll go through that process, kind of using these real drawings. And I'm also hoping to have your drawings graded by Thursday so we can talk about those as well. And I'll show you guys the drawing I created for that assignment. We can kind of compare and contrast some of the things you guys did with what I had. Any questions? Alrighty. I will plan to see you guys for thermo then.